Yeah, let's take a look now at the sources of funding. And again, I'll expect you to be more precise here with the entrepreneurship as opposed to your prior work with business finance, if in fact you've had this in business finance. And a lot of that just has to do with making sure that we're matching up our funding to our requirements up here. Okay, so leave the owner's equity for last. That's going to be the thing that you're going to kind of fill in the blank, because remember, we need to balance out here, right? If we put in $500,000 up here in land, boom, we're going to need $500,000 down here, and normally we can fund about 80% of that, so we'll do 400,000. Oops, I should have put that into the commercial mortgage. Let's do it right. Commercial mortgage, 400,000. Okay, and oops, got one too many zeros in there. And then we'd need, it tells me how much I need, right? I need $100,000 in for owner's equity. And I'm balanced, right? Because it tells me that I'm balanced. So, and that's kind of what we want to look at when we do our funding here. Generally speaking, all the way down, anywhere from 20 to 25% of the money is probably going to be required to come from owner's equity. Sometimes you can get away with a little bit more on a commercial mortgage. You might be able to borrow up to 85% or so, especially using some SBA and some of those other programs that might be available. So just keep that in mind as you go down here. So if we come up here and we take a look at our stuff, land, real estate, leasehold improvements, what's that going to come under? Okay, I'd probably put that under a commercial loan if I had to borrow some money for that. Okay, so if you're going to do $50,000 worth of leasehold improvements, again, $40,000 might be borrowed. The other 10 will end up being probably up here either in owner's equity or outside investors. We'll call those the same. These are both equity investors, and we need that kind of equity when we're talking about this. This is our loans down here, right? Equipment. Okay, and it kind of tells us, depreciated 7 years. Equipment's going to have a commercial loan, generally about a 7-year, 84 months. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so that's probably where that's going to be. Furniture, fixtures, same thing. So you might end up with some totals too, right? Your commercial loan may end up being a combination, right? We might have equipment, furniture, fixtures, etc. We do have an other bank, and we have vehicles here that are separate. So if you do the vehicle, that may be separate. Okay, other bank debt, that might be some of these things down here that you'd possibly finance. Okay, generally speaking, a lot of those aren't necessarily financeable. Okay, if you went directly to the bank and you had a lot of money in pre-opening salaries and legal and accounting fees and those aren't the kinds of things that banks like to finance, because you've written a check and that money's gone and there's no collateral there that the bank can get a hold of. Once again, however, you get into some programs like SBA, some of those that are offered, there can be some accommodations made for those types of requests. And so it is a possible. If you got some questions about that, go ahead and ask. Okay. And some of those, believe it or not, I've seen, this is kind of a weird thing. We'll talk about rates here in a bit, though. But I saw, in my banking days, I saw at least twice or 3 times people who set up businesses and used a lot of actual credit card financing. They would get approved for probably personal credit cards and use that to buy equipment, buy supplies, buy inventory maybe. And the reason I saw it is after they'd been in business for 2 or 3 years and actually been somewhat successful, they would come to me to get a loan maybe than to take out those credit cards, because usually those are a lot higher rate. Okay. Yeah, these, let me get down, finish up here. Vehicle loans you might have. Okay. So again, you end up with some totals here, right? And you should end up with a red amount until you come back and fill this in then owner's equity or outside investors. Okay. fill that in with something that's going to make this balance. If you don't have any money, maybe it's going to take some outside investors. That's fine. If there's 2 or 3 of you, maybe you need $60,000 in owner's equity, and you can each put in $20,000. Okay, you'd still just put $60,000 in here. You might have a note out here, and you could extend the note if you want. That says, hey, we're each going to put in $20,000. Not terribly complicated. Until you get this green, you are fully balanced thing, and it should show up there. Interest rates, yeah, these are a little bit crazy. Okay, I think rates are lower than that right now. The prime rate, if I'm not mistaken, the Fed funds rate is about 2.5. Prime rate's usually 2 or 3 over that. So the prime rate right now is probably more like 6.5, or I'm sorry, 4.5 to 5.5 would be the prime rate. And that's, yours might not be a prime rate type of a thing, but I can tell you too, SBA loans are kind of restricted. They usually aren't allowed to go over that prime plus 3, say. So if the prime rate is what I say, 4.5 to 5.5, your rate might be, 7.5 to 8.5, might be the max. Should you call somebody? Yes. Okay. There are all kinds of bankers. You can stop down and see, give them a call. If you want some examples, you could give Matt Wertheimer or Mason Shepard a call at Independence Bank. You could call Doug Kallenberger at Stockman Bank, or Chuck Wimmer at Stockman Bank. Those are probably the 2 best ones to call. The city. Don't call credit union. Credit unions typically don't make business loans. Okay, so they wouldn't have the same type of information there. Wells and U.S. Bank, they don't get as involved in those things. Okay, credit cards are typically a lot higher interest rate. You can look at your own credit card, and if you're not paying it off every month, you probably got an idea what the interest rate is. A lot of those are more like 12 or 13% right now. Vehicle loans, again, give somebody a call. Hey, if I bought a $15,000 van that was built in 2015, and I financed it for 48 months, what would my rate be? Okay. Fill those in. If I see these generic rates left in there, I'm probably going to question it. So do a little research, try to figure out what they should be, okay? and get this filled in. Make sure it matches that up there so that you're fully balanced. Thanks, and I'll quit on that for today, and hopefully I can get this to